This is the new Toyota 4Runner and we've owned it for over a month now. In this video, we're talking about my top 5 likes and top 5 dislikes, and we're gonna find out, should you buy one? Leave scene. Now, I've been very fortunate to live with this car for quite some time now. We've taken it off-road, we've done some MPG testing, we've done some performance testing, and I'm gonna tell you the real truth about living with the 4Runner. My number 5 like about this all-new 4Runner is the engine. That's right, they went from a V6 to a 4-cylinder turbo, and everybody's mad about it, except for me. And I've lived with this car for about a month, and it is so much better. This engine, admittedly, sounds a little bit like a food processor. However, the way it drives is vastly improved. It actually gets up and goes even at over a mile above sea level where I live. This turbocharger hits hard and it hits at a low RPM, something like 1700 RPM. This engine is just a little gem. It is so good. And I know everybody's freaked out about reliability with this new engine. Keep in mind, it's not just in the 4Runner, it's in the Highlander and the Lexus RX and the Lexus NX. This engine has been around for years now, and there are hundreds of thousands of cars sold to prove that so far it's holding up pretty well. Is it going to hold up as well as the 4-liter? No. It's not made out of brick like the old one was, but it also accelerates and performs, and you get some kind of cool little turbo whistles every now and then. So I really like this engine. It is great. And one other thing I'd say about this engine, there is a hybrid 4Runner as well. I haven't driven the hybrid version. However, from my experience in the Land Cruiser, skip the hybrid. Same thing with my experience in the Tacoma. Sure, it does on paper give you a lot more torque, but in practice, you don't really feel that big of a difference, hybrid to non-hybrid. And at least in the Tacoma, the fuel economy benefit just isn't worth some of the compromises that come with that hybrid. So for me, get the standard 4Runner with the 2.4 turbo. And I know you're probably gonna hate me for this, but it is so much better than the old 4-liter V6, at least when it comes to accelerating and maintaining speed, which is arguably what an engine is for. There you go, I said it. Number 4 like with that new 4Runner is the off-road capability. Now, when you consider this is a 4-door, 5-passenger, or in some cases more than 5-passenger SUV in this 4Runner, it is incredible. The crawl control is the best it's ever been. The multi-terrain select is the best it's ever been. The approach departure is all good, and that TRD off-road with the rear locker is the sweet spot. It's got that locking diff. It doesn't have the needless price of like the TRD Pro or Trail Hunter. We had this thing off-road in Moab, and it was so good. It was so impressive for what it is. In my opinion, better than the old one even. So that's my number 4 like. Number 3, my next like is the transmission. 8-speed automatic. You know, on paper, there's some 10 speeds, there's some 9 speeds, so it doesn't sound like it should be phenomenal, but what Toyota has done well with this transmission, beyond anything, is the tuning. The tuning is absolutely perfect. It is always in the right gear. It never feels like it's hunting for gears. And then when you're off-road in low range, when you want it to just keep second and hold it, it does it without me telling it to. It is one of the smoothest and best transmissions in the industry right now. It always works. And especially compared to the outgoing 5-speed, which is arguably a bigger factor to the drivability problems with the old ones than the V6, it is such a little gem. I really like it. There are manual settings, so you can force the gear shift. Of course, it will limit you so you don't damage the transmission, but it's a little gem, and especially when you're towing. Andre in Case had this thing on the Ike Gauntlet. We'll include some footage of that here, towing our K-Truck.
All right, it's finally time to take this 4Runner up the mountain.
And this is where I feel like we're going to see a big improvement with this new generation of the 4Runner. And of course, as you start accelerating, I will start our timer.
Many manufacturers, not just Toyota, are downsizing their engines, right? Yep. Downshifted twice, built up some RPM, and I think it's doing pretty good. The wheelbase is much shorter in the SUV.
Over 5,000 pounds, it maxes out at 6,000 pounds of 4Runner, and this transmission seemed to do a really good job. So I think that across the board, Toyota has really dialed in this unit. My number 2 like is the interior in this 4Runner and the number of features. So if you are into luxury and tech, this new 4Runner delivers in spades. Now it comes at a cost, and boy will we talk about the cost later in this video. But if you really just want a ton of luxury features with pretty decent technology, this 4Runner does deliver in a lot of ways. I mean, we're talking about things in this TRD Off-Road Premium like a heated steering wheel, we've got heated seats, we've got ventilated seats, we've got wireless Apple Apple CarPlay. I mean, just about every modern feature you'd expect out of like a Mercedes or BMW, you can get optioned in this 4Runner. And especially when it comes to the safety tech. Toyota's nailed the safety tech in this vehicle with adaptive cruise control, the lane centering, the blind spot monitoring, and all that comes in pretty much every version of the 4Runner, which is such a big deal. And the number one thing I like about daily driving this 4Runner is just the livability about this car. It is just a simple, easy, and straightforward machine to operate, and it blends into my life perfectly. And I think 4Runners have always been good at this, but this more than I think any other 4Runner, particularly this one because it is so comfortable and luxurious, and I'm becoming an old man, but it fits every need that I could use it for in so well. It's got a pretty good trunk, it's got a lot of power for going skiing on I-70, it's got good grip, it's got the capability if I need it. It really is the most jack of all trades 4Runner that have ever existed, especially if you want to tow. It does that better than any other 4Runner in the past 5th generations have ever done. So I think I've been pretty blown away with it. And I've always liked 4Runners, and they've always worked pretty well for my lifestyle. But this one, with its combination of luxury features, along with the power, means it's, in my opinion, it's the best one they've ever done. I know people are going to hate me for that, but it's where I'm at. Now look. The 4Runner is one of the most contentious, is that the right word, Mary? Contemporary, contentious. The new 4Runner is one of the most contentious new vehicles online. A lot of folks have a lot of things to say about what this vehicle has turned into, and we need to talk about those. Now, some of them I think are very true, some of them are very much not, but let's go to my top 5 dislikes about living with the new 4Runner. Confucius. My number 5 dislike in this 4Runner is the fuel economy, which sounds kind of counterintuitive because I praise this engine about being awesome, and it is a lot more efficient than the old one, but I wish it was just a little bit better. So we ran this 4Runner through our MPG loop with and without the big plastic air dam in the front, which looks ridiculous, but does actually help fuel economy by about 0.8, and we averaged about 23 MPG, which is a lot better than the old one, especially since we're going like 75. The old one, you would probably do 16 to 18 MPG at 75 miles an hour. So that's a big step up. But considering, you know, it's a lot smaller engine, granted turbocharged and more power, I was expecting a little bit better, specifically because during my MPG test, Andre was doing a separate video, same day, same conditions, with a Tundra, the new Tundra twin turbo V6, much bigger vehicle, and he was getting basically identical fuel economy over the same route. Now you're probably thinking, well, just get the hybrid, right? There's a hybrid version coming, and we're gonna run the hybrid through the fuel efficiency test as well, and maybe that's gonna be a lot better. On paper, it's not a significant bump in fuel economy, and maybe I'm being a little whiny turd here, but I just wish it was a little better. The city fuel economy, you know, high teens, somewhere in that territory, so it's okay, it's livable, it's usable, but I think in this new generation they could have made it just a hair better. My number 4 dislike comes down to the interior. Now, we talked about how this vehicle has luxury car levels of tech in it, which I stand by. Stuff like ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, automatic climate, all that good stuff. But it doesn't have luxury car levels of interior quality, and it does feel just a little bit chintzy. For example, these door handles that you interact with every single time you get out of the car, you can feel the molding in them. None of the plastics feel all that nice. And I know that typically folks aren't up here playing bongos on their dash, but at this price point, I wish we had a little bit more color and a little higher quality materials throughout this interior. Double nod from Mary. My number 3 dislike is actually the ride quality in this 4Runner. It's a little choppy. Now, there are a ton of different versions, the SR5s and the TRD versions and the Limiteds and what have you, and I haven't driven those. I've only spent time in our long-term TRD off-road premium, and look, it's not terrible. You know, I think the typical person would be like, oh, it kind of drives like a truck, but with so many of the luxury and livability improvements of the 4Runner, I kind of wish it was just a little smoother. It does okay over the big bumps, but on like the small frequency stuff, it just gets a little jittery. And especially over washboard, I definitely think that's true, so I'm a little disappointed by that. Number 2 dislike it's actually the backseat room. Now, there are a couple of good things in this backseat. For example, it does have real vents, which is an amazing thing if you've got furry friends or kids that you're hauling around regularly. They're gonna stay cool. That's great. It also has some onboard power, and it also has USB-C. All of that is good. The other good thing is there's a little bit of recline, and that is also good, but at my driving position, at 6 feet tall, it's a little cramped back here. I'm not gonna pretend it's not. If you scoot this forward like this seat is, yeah, obviously you can make the room, but in order for a tall driver to be comfortable, the rear seat passengers are gonna suffer a little bit. And I just wish Toyota added like another inch of legroom back here. One other aspect I want to talk about: price. Yes, they are expensive, but apparently folks are paying over sticker. I was just reading a thing recently that a lot of dealers are charging over sticker, and it appears that these things are selling for over sticker, so maybe Toyota's right. Maybe the market could bear more. And then historically, 4Runners have crazy, crazy resale value. So hopefully this new 6th generation also has crazy resale value, and you'll get some of that money back when you sell it in a couple years. And my number one dislike, and this is the most controversial confusion mention hurdle. And that brings us to number one, my number one dislike. And this is gonna be a little bit of a layered dislike, but it's the price. Now on the base end, the 4Runner starts at pretty much what the old one started at, in the very low 40s. That's great news, but Toyota knows that no one is buying those bean cans, and then they start layering the price up, and it gets quite exponentially more expensive the higher up in the trim line you go. So if you end up with one of these, like this TRD Off-Road Premium, you add a couple little options like some black badging, this 4Runner set us back $58,000, which is a lot of money for a 4Runner. Now, no doubt in my mind, it is the best 4Runner they've ever made. It does so much, so unbelievably well, but I still think it's a little bit too expensive on the top end. And if you want a trail hunter or a TRD Pro, well, you are well deep into the 60s, which is a lot of money for a 4Runner, especially when you have the Land Cruiser and the GX550 kind of verging on that price point as well. But as a whole, I've been very impressed living with this 4Runner. It does everything I need a 4Runner to do. It works very well in the city, it works well on the highway, and it's incredible off-road. Yes, I think it's expensive, and yes, the fuel economy has been a little bit of a disappointment, but I still quite like this new 4Runner. Love to hear your opinion though. Drop me a comment below. And as always, has been Tommy behind the camera, Mary. We'll see you in the next video.
The black badging was $18,000?
Did I say 18,000?
No, you just said if you add black badging to it.
This badge right here, don't touch it.
18 grand.
That's 18 grand. Yeah, no, sorry. Places this will go. The places you'll go to, oh. What is the lyric?
Oh, the places you'll go.
Oh, the places you'll go. Do it again. Stand up 3, incredibly massive. Mary!